Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1093 of our daily content grind, and today I am answering another Patreon request, which of course, if you want your own, the link is in the description. You go to my Patreon, you pitch in at the highest tier, you can ask me for videos routinely. So this is another one of those requests. We know that Transformers did the Marvel crossovers ages ago, and well, not the greatest in execution, the idea itself is kind of fantastic. You know, what could go wrong with transforming Marvel heroes? And granted, for like a weird spin-off line, it actually lasted quite a while and did produce a few interesting toys. So I was actually given the challenge, what happens if it was DC Comics instead? Now, obviously, Mattel is like, well, I guess now it's McFarlane, but obviously, you know, that license is not likely available, maybe for a one-off, but certainly not for like an entire toy line like Crossovers was. But we can play with the idea of what to do with the DC universe as far as like what vehicle modes would I give them, what would they transform into, etc., etc. So we're going to play with that idea today. Also, you will forgive me if I keep saying DC Comics because that's just the easiest way to designate what I'm talking about. I understand that it's like saying ATM machine. It is technically a duplication in there. I don't mean to be repetitive, but it just makes it easier. It just makes it easier to say. So, first off, we're going to get the easy ones out of the way. No clue, no points at all for guessing what Hawkman and Hawkgirl will turn into. So we're not even going to bother. We're going to go straight into Batman, because of course the first thing you want is a Batman that turns into the Batmobile. The question is, which one? Because, oh my god, there's so many classics. You know, like, we could do, like, the Tumbler and make it the Christopher Nolan Batman. We could do the animated series Batman. But that Batmobile is basically just a big box. I feel like he'd just unfold the shell to become his cape, and that would be his robot. He'd be like a pretender. What about the Adam West? Like the classic, going back to the 60s, because that's such an iconic car. No, if I had my choice, if we had to start anywhere, it would be the Tim Burton. This has always been my favorite Batmobile. I think this one looks the coolest. And I think this would make a pretty cool looking Batman too. That said, Batman, in a way that he is in DC Comics in general, can also be a stand-in for the way that crossovers handle Tony Stark, in that there's plenty of vehicles he could be, from sports cars to jets. You know, if you're gonna keep this line going, you're gonna do a Bat Jet eventually. And we're probably gonna do a bunch of the Batmobiles. So plenty of options there. Very obvious though. What about Superman? What about the other big guy? You know, this one I kind of struggled with, because like there is no vehicle that's iconic to Superman. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? I tried looking up Superman vehicles. I got a bunch of Hot Wheels that are based on him, a bunch of 90s toys that make no sense. I don't know why Clark Kent had a like 6-digit sports car that could fly. I do know why, because it's a retool of a Batman toy, but you know, whatever. Point being, I was struggling to figure out what vehicle would actually work for Superman, and I had to start like thinking back, like, is there any kind of reference to any kind of vehicle involving Superman? And I have to go all the way back to the oldest of cliches for Superman, and that being faster than a speeding bullet and more powerful than a locomotive. Granted, weird choice, I know. I almost made him a jet. I think just for the joke, this one works. But I almost made him a jet. But that's Wonder Woman territory, because she's one of those characters. She's the other of the Trinity that also has a vehicle associated with her. Granted, it's the Invisible Jet, but despite being the Invisible Jet, or the Invisible Plane technically, it does have a canonical design. Several of them, actually. So yes, they actually could make a Wonder Woman Transformer based on her actual vehicle. And then, of course, at some point, some store is going to carry an exclusive that's made completely out of clear plastic, and it's going to hurt my soul. But at least it will make sense for the character. So you know what? We have that one built in. We just have to do that one. Easy. Now, as long as we're doing this, you know, we've gone through the Trinity, and then I like obviously like you know, we've been done Hawkman and Hawkgirl. I guess that means we have to go through the rest of the core cast of the Justice League and start picking out our favorites there. So the Flash, I think, fits a very obvious notion, right? Like, he's got to be the sports car, because you know, we need a sports car in this lineup. And this is where we're going to start getting away from some of the more fantasy DC vehicles, and we're going to start going into like real world stuff that their crossovers alt mode would be based on. So I wanted something that kind of invoked his lightning bolt motif, and I came across this. This is a Lamborghini Venero, and it looks beautiful. I would love this, like very futuristic, big spoiler, that kind of thing. This is the type of like high-speed performance car that would work great as the Flash. Now, that's going to bring us to another staple of the Justice League, and that would be Aquaman. And this one is kind of a toss-up. There's a few different ways you can go about this. Submarine is obvious. I toyed with the idea of like an attack ship, like an attack boat, not a full battleship or aircraft carrier, but just like something that could get some combat in on the water. It wasn't gigantic. But then I realized, you know, obviously, like if I've got Hawkman and Hawkgirl as like hawks, then animals aren't really off limit, and his powers and his thing has always been animals. I started doing a little bit of research. So there are sharks that can appear orange. In particular, nurse sharks and sand tiger sharks can have orange skin. So we can have a shark that kind of fits his traditional color scheme. Now, we wouldn't actually use those types of sharks. We'd use something a little bit more cool. Like I would go for like a hammerhead, for instance. But that gives us a basis. And we don't always have to go toward cars and trucks and things like that for this line. We can delve into a few animals here and there for the sake of variety when it makes sense for the character. Cyborg gave me trouble. So in Teen Titans, he has a car he's known for, and I think overall I'm still like really hung up on the Teen Titan depiction of him, where he's a lot buffer and bigger. So when I start to try and figure out what would he turn into, like my brain was going to larger vehicles. We don't have too many largish vehicles in here outside of the locomotive. So what am I thinking here? I started searching different high-tech vans and SUVs, and I stumbled upon this concept. Citroën came up with this thing. If I'm pronouncing that company name, like, I don't know cars. But this is one of their concept SUVs, and I think without even doing anything to the color, I think it looks like something Cyborg would transform into. But it's definitely got to be something high-tech, and it's got to be something that has enough mass to it to get to that, like, that bulk. Because, like, I would like a bulkier character in this lineup, more akin to, like, his depiction in Teen Titans. Because that also let us open up a whole, like, branch here where we can maybe get some Teen Titan characters out as well. What about the Martian Manhunter? So I almost went with the obvious joke. Something in my head said, make him a flying saucer. Make him Cosmos, you know, in the DC crossover line. But there's something weird about that. Like going that route with him, and my brain kind of went like, is this like borderline offensive? Is this borderline offensive to Martians, a group of people who don't exist? Because I'm just going to categorize, you know, the green man from Mars as like a old school flying saucer UFO. And I looked at this and I decided, you know what? I don't really feel like accidentally creating an allegory today. I am going to make him something space related. I am going to make him a space shuttle. but I'm going to do it for the proper reasoning. So for starters, I think the wings will make a really good silhouette of his cape. The cape on the Martian Manhunter is always this important detail for me. But also, I think it provides the bulk that we need to give him a decent looking robot, whereas I love Cosmos, but that flying saucer design does somewhat limit what we can do with him form-wise. So rather than be kind of restrictive and end up with like round arms, I think better to go with something a little bit more traditionally designed that we've made, you know, like standard shaped Transformers out of for a long time now. Green Lantern will wrap up the Justice League portion of this video. And I will admit, this one gave me a little bit of hang up because for me, what really conveys the Green Lantern and his powers, regardless of which lantern it is, like if you're your John Stewart's, your Guy Gardner's, your Hal Jordan's, regardless, you know, Kyle Rayner's, I'll make sure I include more of them, Kilowog, how many more do I have to name? The point is, their power, it lies in imagination. You know, the Green can manifest physical objects of whatever shape they want, and it's just kind of down to, like, what do you imagine it being? You know, like, there's, like, a minor plot point in the old Justice League cartoon about how John is always, like, really unimaginative. You know, he's just firing beams with his ring instead of, like, manifesting them into shapes or something. You know, that's the whole thing about, like, Kyle Rayner being a lantern, where he's an artist. So his imagination really drives what he's doing, and he has a lot more fun with it, you know? So, but for a bit, I thought, like, what if we, like, take a 6-shot or a quick switch and, like, retool that into Green Lantern? Because that would make a lot of logical sense, wouldn't it? You know, that he could reshape his vehicle mode to fit whatever situation he's in. That's like a Green Lantern power. But I'm trying to hold to the Transformer crossovers aesthetic of like one vehicle for one robot. No triple changers, no, you know, 6 changers or anything. So I eventually decided on a helicopter. Now, if it's a Hal Jordan, then yes, a jet would make more sense because he used, you know, his backstory is being a test pilot, but we've already got jet covered with Wonder Woman, so I wanted to diversify. Still keeps us to an aerial vehicle, though. And also, I'm just imagining, like, if I can't get a Green Lantern to actually, like, be multiple forms, then what I can do is at least have something about the vehicle translate to his powers. So to have like a big translucent green, yes, I'm asking for translucent here, but like a big translucent green helicopter blade that actually mounted to the back of his fist so that it could like be like a big spinning weapon that looks like he's generated with his, you know, with his ring. There you go. That would actually work. I think that would actually convey it pretty well. If we get past the Justice League, we have a few major characters we have to include, especially because, you know, we're getting out of the range. We're going through so many heroes. We need a few villains in here. And we need a few anti-heroes. Of course we do. We can't do a line like this without doing Harley Quinn. You know, like, she is like the 4th of the big 3 in DC. You know, she outsells the likes of Wonder Woman sometimes. And yeah, she has actually been really good at being like a heroic character lately. So I started to think, and she's a hard one to pin down because she's a chaotic character. For some reason, what popped into my head was like an old school muscle car. Because it's very unique, it's very standout, it's a powerful vehicle while still having a lot of style to it. It looked good in red and black, half and half. And I think just, I don't know what it is, but it feels like it fits her personality. You know, just being like offbeat enough and out of the norm enough to really just like be standout. I feel like that's where Harley's vehicle mode lies. I'm not going to go with the obvious joke and make Harley a Harley Davidson, by the way. The only hard part about this was that I couldn't figure out anything for Poison Ivy. You know, because like I hate to put Harley in a toy line without adding a poison ivy. However, one, I don't think a pitcher plant transformer would sell at retail. But two, also, I couldn't come up with a vehicle that she would turn into that would actually make sense because she is very, like, environmental. You know, I can't make her a big gas guzzling vehicle and still make it feel like, yeah, this is poison ivy. Like, it goes completely against her. Like, I was trying to come up with like unique looking electric cars that she could be, just try and get at least something of like a clean fuel car, like something like energy efficient or something out of this as a compromise. Like, unfortunately, the only like unique looking like electric vehicle right now is a Cybertruck, and frankly, with how she's developed as a character, she's not that evil anymore. So that was out. So Harley will have to go at solo. But if we're going to throw in Harley, we need to throw in the Joker at some point too. Oh, I guess with Batman as well. Because there's still people who want Harley and Joker together, even though it's an allegory for domestic violence. That fun thing. But we need a Joker. We need the Batman to punch somebody. And I feel like Joker is where you get to play and just do something goofy. For my Joker, it's going to be an ice cream truck. I'm not making Mr. Freeze an ice cream truck. Don't even put it in the comments. That character is way too serious. But this needs to be something silly, goofy, and it needs to be like clown head on top. It needs to have like a grill that looks like a smiling teeth. You know, it's got to be that. You know, that's got to be where this particular Joker lives, right? So, that said, paint it green and purple. Give it a few, like ice cream gimmicky chemical weapons. Call it a day. If we're going to do Joker for Batman, we got to do a Lex Luthor for Superman. And I feel like this is, again, someone where this is a lot easier. And you think it's Lex Luthor, you know, like the villainous billionaire. He's got to have some kind of very rich, very ritzy car. You know, my thought was like limousine, but it's kind of a weird vehicle to ask someone to buy. But, you know, something like a Rolls Royce, something in that department, like something that's just like super high tech. Well, not super high tech, but like super high class, like a big deal luxury car. That kind of thing. That's where I'm picturing Lex Luthor. That's an easy one. But like once I started getting through to like some of these, like you must have these characters. Like here's this bulk. You did the entire Justice League. You did some of the main villains or the main heroes. You know, you did the most popular character with Harley. So who's left? But then I started thinking about it the other direction of like, look at the toy line I have created now. I've got jets, SUVs. I've got a few beasts in there. I've got a few cars in there. I've even got a train. But what am I missing? What is not being represented in this toy line? Motorcycles were not represented in this toy line. And I thought to myself, the easiest one I can think of offhand, wait for it. I know you're going to say something else, but wait for it. Robin. And if we're going to do Batman, a Robin, that's an easy inclusion. We know it's something Hasbro would do because they could get a number of repaints out of it as other Robins, Nightwing. That's very easy for Hasbro to do. You know they would do it. I'm picturing more of a futuristic, almost like Akira style motorcycle, like something that has a lot of bulk for the transformation. If it was Chopper style, it would be much harder to turn into a licensed character. But if it was that kind of bike, like a big heavy like machine bike, yes, it would be Lobo. He would be the one to go to. But I can't find like an appropriate hog that's gonna turn into like Lobo with the big hair, you know? He's too bulky to transform into a motorcycle. It's like that's why I didn't find a spot for him in this list. We didn't have a tank. I need some kind of tank representation in this. And the thought that came to mind was Doomsday. And for a few reasons. Number one, yeah, like he feels like a living tank. But also, I got to thinking, we're going to do him in, you know, we've got this big spiky like aesthetic to him, you know, so you could actually have like the kibble of the tank kind of fill in the silhouette of those big spikes off of his shoulders and thighs and all that. So you can actually use the armor and the kibble to the advantage of the robot mode. which would actually be really clever. But what I also thought of is the fact that if we do it in gray and actually match his like typical depiction, then he's going to look absolutely correct in tank mode, you know, because gray tanks are a thing. However, we can also depict him the way he was when he first showed up in like the green like spacesuit. And then the tank mode is green and it still makes sense. Perfect, easy repaint. We can get so we get Doomsday. And the one I finished off on, the one that came to mind last is like, obviously I haven't created any kind of Optimus Prime equivalent in this line. We don't have a truck. We don't have a semi-truck. I don't even have a pickup truck in this line. So then I started thinking to myself, who fits that? Who works for that? And it really depends on the kind of truck you find. You know, like a standard pickup truck, that's a Guy Gardner. You know, it's that realm of DC character. But if I want big Mack truck, big Peterbilt, I found this one, which looks absolutely wicked. This looks like an evil truck if I ever saw one. And when I think big, powerful machine like that, the only thought that came to mind was Darkseid. If Darkseid was a Transformer, yeah, I think he'd take the Scourge approach. Big semi, biggest thing on the road type vehicle. Obviously, he could work as a tank as well, but, you know, we're splitting hairs at that point. I'm trying to create a little bit of variety here. So there's where my head would go. From there, honestly, this could go on for hours because there's so many DC characters. A lot of them are equivalent to vehicles. Like, we could just keep going on and on and on and start trying to figure out what the question would drive, you know? I don't know. But beyond that, we're just getting into like hypotheticals. I wanted to stick to just like major characters here and hopefully get those accounted for and leave the rest for imagination. So there you go. For the comment section today, I would like you to actually tell me which one of these you like the best, or if there is one that you think is off, what would a better vehicle for them be? So there's your assignment for the day. I will leave you to figure that out in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you next time.